Let me hold your hand when I say this. We do not move to America because we think it's a better country.
Yes, we do move to America because it's a better country.
Isn't it annoying when people say, wow, you live in Mexico? I could never live there. Aren't you scared? You have to realize that these people have never, ever been to Mexico, let alone lived here. They really act like Mexico has nothing to offer. They really be acting like there's no, normal roads, let alone electricity. Like, people just don't walk on sidewalks, after work, a hard day's work, people have 9-to-5s here. People live comfortably here. Honestly, I think a lot of people live much better here than the USA. Yes, there is poverty, but the biggest thing is that people think that every Mexican is poor. No, that is just not the case. I have Mexican neighbors that own businesses, that do real estate, but you look like a local. Of course you fit in. There are Mexicans with blue eyes and blonde hair, but guess what? You guys wouldn't know that because you don't even realize that colorism exists here in Mexico. My advice, travel more, see it through your own eyes, because that's the only way you're actually gonna truly see it.
Mexico is way safer than the US. Let me prove it to you. How many people go missing in Mexico every day? 26. How many people go missing every single day in the US? Is 1,643. How many people go missing in Mexico every year? 10,000. How many people go missing in the USA every year? 600,000. When you hear in the news there's 100,000 people missing in Mexico, those are statistics from 2006 to 2022. That is 18 years worth of missing people. Do you want to know how many people went missing in the USA in that same time period? The number's crazy. 11,211,000 people missing. Another detail the media never brings up. Out of those 100,000 people that have gone missing in Mexico in the past 18 years, 57,000 have been found. That leaves 37,000 people still missing. You want to know how many were found in the U.S. out of the 11 million? 99% of the 11 million were found. You would say that's a great number. But what is 1% of 11 million? 112,000 people are still missing in the U.S. in the same time period. The U.S. has 331 million people living in it. In Mexico, 131 million. That makes the U.S. 2.5 times bigger than Mexico. Yet, the U.S. has 20% more missing people, long-term missing people, than Mexico. Math ain't mathin'. Facts are facts. Are being fed a poisonous narrative. The U.S. media vilifies Mexico. They're telling you, be grateful to be in the U.S. where you're safe. Remember, we're capitalism's slaves. We're paying 5 times more for groceries than we did 3 years ago. They don't even offer us universal health care. And they're trying to prevent you from leaving the U.S. and moving to another country like Mexico, because they want to keep their slaves. My receipts are in the first comment. And in my next video, let's talk about which of the two has the worst pew-pew violence. That shall be interesting.
Self-hating Mexicans and European Americans who have never even been to Mexico are always tagging me in videos of all the bad things that happen in Mexico. So today, I'm going to show you guys the things that happen in the US that they will never tag me in. Today, 2 men were found without life in a St. Louis apartment. Yesterday, 3 people were unalived and 17 were injured in Chicago. Also in Illinois, 2 people were unalived and 5 others were wounded. Today, a man in Florida unalived his brother. In California, 1 person was unalived and 6 others were injured at a party. Today, 10 people were injured at a party in New York. And of course, you can't forget about what happened in New Orleans yesterday. I have way more I could show you, but this video would be too long. US propaganda wants you to believe that every other country is dangerous. Oh, you can't travel here, you can't travel here. In the US, you can't even travel to your own backyard. And remember, guys, whenever you point a finger at somebody, 3 more are pointing back at you. So there you have it, guys. USA is just as, if not more dangerous than Mexico, but the news will never tell you that. But anyways, let me know what you guys think.
In my opinion, Mexico is the best country in the world. I lived there for a year, and these are my 5 most surprising things of living there. Keep in mind, I'm Arabian American that lived his whole life in Chicago. Number 1, endless sunshine. Number 2, modern amenities and comfort. I was surprised to see Costco and AutoZone and everything else. It was like America in paradise. Number 3, how safe it is. It is so safe. So safe. One of the safest countries I traveled to. Number 4, affordability. You can live in the best neighborhood in Mexico in Puerto Vallarta, one of the best cities, for cheaper than living in Chicago. And number 5, the most important, it is a family-oriented country. They have so many family values. I learned so much about it, how to be close to your family. It's not about materialism. And those are my 5 reasons why I think Mexico is the best country in the world. What do you think is the best country in the world? Comment below.
If you don't like Mexican immigrants, don't order mezcal. Don't buy tequila shots to celebrate. No mezcal old-fashioned or mezcal Negroni because you like that smoky flavor. Don't retire in Mexico to make your dollar stretch further. And if you think you're helping the tourist economy in Mexico, then know that they are boosting your economy when they're here in the US because they pay taxes. Uncle Sam takes taxes off their paycheck and they pay sales tax on everything that they buy in the United States. Don't go to Cancun or Cozumel or Cabo to celebrate your bachelorette party or your bachelor party. Don't go and take advantage of our hospitality in Mexico for your special occasions. Don't eat any fresh vegetables because there's a 99% chance that a Mexican picked it out for you. Don't eat tortillas, don't eat mole, don't eat any of our cuisine. And when you do go to Mexico, make sure you speak Spanish and hold yourself to the same standards that you hold migrants who move here and speak English in paragraphs within a few months. Maybe it would serve you if you are also bilingual or trilingual. Don't forget that we are a country of immigrants and your ancestors got off Ellis Island not too long ago. And my personal favorite, when you tell us to go back to our country, remember that we're standing on it.
If Mexico is so great, why are so many Mexicans moving to the United States? This is a question that I get asked all the time, so let's talk about it. First, we need to understand some real US-Mexico history. Did you know that it used to be a lot easier for Mexicans to go back and forth from the US to Mexico? For decades, people migrated really easily between the two countries. People went to US to work because the wages there are higher, and they would return back to Mexico where their families, their people, their culture is. It wasn't about leaving Mexico, it was about opportunity. And US programs highly encouraged this. Following World War II in the early 1940s, the US created something called the Bracero program. This program brought in over 4 million Mexican workers into the US to legally work in order to fulfill the jobs as a result of the labor shortages following the war. These Mexican workers literally saved the US economy from collapsing. It was a win-win for both the United States as well as these workers. They worked in factories, they worked on the railroads, as well as in agriculture. And the idea was never to stay in the United States forever. It was to come work these jobs and then return home with their wages. However, then there was growing resentment from people believing that these workers were taking the American jobs, and that's where we see things like, yes, that's what it was called. This was a cruel and chaotic mass deportation effort by the United States government that tore families apart. It even targeted people in the Bracero program that had just been invited to come to the United States legally. By the 1960s and the 70s, the United States began militarizing the border and limiting visas. It became harder and harder for Mexicans to travel back and forth. It became expensive, risky, and dangerous. So this had the opposite effect. It actually forced many people who would go back and forth to actually settle in the United States permanently. Now moving into modern day, we're actually seeing the number of Mexicans moving to the United States is drastically lower than it used to be. In fact, there are more Mexicans that have moved back to Mexico from the United States than have gone to the United States from Mexico. So it's never been about Mexico not being great. It's about opportunity, and that's that.
The United States hates Mexicans and their children. That's not my opinion. That's their opinion, and they prove it through history. So I'll give you the historical receipts. In the year 1929, the Mexican repatriation, this was an operation that was conducted in response to the Great Depression because the people were saying Mexicans are dirty, dangerous, lazy, and taking jobs. How they could be lazy and taking jobs, I don't know, but that's what they said. And what? Oh, that sounds awfully familiar to what they're saying again, almost 100 years later, to try and accomplish the same exact thing. But anyways, let's roll it all the way back. So what was the point of the Mexican repatriation? It was to deport Mexicans, okay? Not only that, their children as well, who had legal U.S. citizenship. That is right. This affected up to 2 million people, and it is estimated that up to 40% of those people that were deported were legal U.S. citizens, okay? So this was almost 100 years ago. I feel like we're due for another one. That's exactly what's happening right now. Everything we're seeing that's happening right now already happened now. Okay, I'll give you another one. 1954, Operation Wetback. Yes, that is actually what the legal government name for that operation is, Operation Wetback. And what was that? The largest mass deportation of undocumented workers of this country. And it is also an operation that was deemed as very, very, very successful. So when we look at what the heck is going on right now, people saying, oh no, it's just the criminals. It's just this, it's just that. No, those are the same exact excuses, the same exact rhetoric that they were using in the past. This is not new. This is repeating itself. All of that begs the bigger question, why Mexicans? There's other types of immigrants. There are Russians and Ukrainians and Africans, right? Well, the answer is actually very simple. And the answer to that is because Mexicans are indigenous to the United States. In fact, a lot of the states of the U.S. were Mexico originally. States California, Texas, Arizona, New Mexico, Nevada. Mexicans were there first. In fact, Mexicans come from Mesoamericans who have been in the U.S. since 1600 BCE. So, is it really about sending Mexicans back to Mexico? I don't think so. They are still trying to accomplish their original goal.
We are a nation of immigrants. This country was not built by immigrants. This country was built by settlers who came here and built this country from nothing.
Because crossing borders is only heroic when white people do it. I hate to break it to you, Settler Dan, but your ancestors, and mine too, were the original illegal aliens. What do you call white people who cross the ocean, show up uninvited to land already inhabited by indigenous people who have lived there for thousands of years, and then destroy their cultures, their languages, their religion, and impose your own? Settlers, or rather, colonizers. And then what do you call people of color who cross the border, work jobs that nobody else wants to work, pay taxes, and try to build a life in the so-called land of opportunity? Illegals. Illegal aliens. Criminals. If you're white, it's exploration. You're a pioneer. You're a settler. And if you're not, you're an invader. And for the record, it wasn't the colonizers that built the United States. It was the immigrants that came after them from every corner of the globe. They built the railroads, the roads, the factories, the farms. They built the United States.
Here's a hot take that might make some of y'all really angry, but stick till the end of the video with me. If you're a Mexican born in the US, first generation, second generation, whatever, you're not Mexican. You're a Mexican American. And I say this in the kindest way possible, but there's differences in culture. I mean, we're literally born in different countries. There's differences in tradition. There's differences in food. This not to say that there's not a lot of commonalities. We share heritage. We share a lot of cultural practices, ideologies, religion. But coming from someone that was born and raised in Mexico, but then has also lived in the US for 10 years, there's a very stark difference. And the reason that I think that this is such a controversial take is because Mexican Americans get really insulted when anybody approaches this subject. And I think it's due to this idea that Mexican Americans feel that they're not Mexican enough. But the thing is that Mexican American is already a whole identity. It's already valid in itself. You are already 100% of who you are, and you do not need to be more Mexican. If anything, you can look at it this way. You have the best of both worlds.
People who say, well, that's not the real Mexico, crack me up, because people travel to the United States all the time from foreign countries. And where do they go? They go to New York. They go to LA. They go to Chicago. They might go to Miami. And that's the real US. I promise you it's real. It's not like imaginary or a phantom city. It's really a part of the U.S. It's a part of the U.S. There's diversity in the U.S. because it's a whole country. No one would say, oh, you didn't go to the real U.S. because you didn't go to like Glendora, Mississippi, or you didn't go to Carbon, Indiana, or you didn't go to Leroy, Iowa. You didn't go to the poorest, smallest places, so you didn't see the real United States. They saw the real United States. Just like when you go to Mexico, and if you go to Playa del Carmen or Cancun or Cozumel, or you go to Mexico City, or you go to Puerto Vallarta, or you go to Mazatlan, or you go to Merida, those are real places in real Mexico. Mexico is diverse. Mexico has metropolitan cities. Mexico has cosmopolitan cities with diverse ethnicities and diverse languages, and it's diverse. It's a whole country, just like the U.S. Not every place in Mexico is like a border town or a little pueblo. Not every place is like what you've seen in the movies, okay? A lot of major cities around the world look very, very similar, whether they're in Australia or in Europe or in Mexico or the US. They're cosmopolitan cities. Now, the architecture might be different depending on how old the cities are. And there's culture differences, but they're real. They're real. They're just a part of the realness of that country and the diversity of that country. Anyway, I'm done preaching for the day.
All right, people, time for a history lesson. Do you know that black Africans were not the only people enslaved? They tell you this narrative in order to make white Americans seem more superior. They say that there was nothing before, there was nothing after, but the truth is Native Americans with dark skin was also enslaved. Aboriginal people were also enslaved. And when these people mix, guess what happens? So when people tell you that they have roots that are Aboriginal and or Native American, trust me that it is very much possible. Does this mean everybody is from the same lineage? No, that's the unique part about black Americans. There are people with European roots, there are people with Native roots, there are people with African roots. And if you think everybody was a slave, then how was there free black people? People came from Africa and all of a sudden became wealthy, free black people? And there's a bit of information that they do not like to tell you, reclassification. If you live in a country that has admitted that there is systematic oppression, they have admitted that we have targeted only one group of people, do you really think that they will tell you the actual origins of these people? You know why? Because then the people have more claim to the land than they know. Same reason why you cannot take DNA tests in Israel or use DNA tests in Israel. With the rising eugenics in the 1920s, Walter Ashby Plecker encouraged every government organization to reclassify anybody with dark features, essentially as Negro. So if your family record said Native or anything in between, they would then say Negro simply because you had dark skin. On January 10th, 1921, a fire in the basement of the U.S. Department of Commerce building in Washington, D.C. destroyed most of the 1890 census records. This blaze created a major gap in genealogical and demographic data, meaning they had an accidental fire that wiped out your family's information. For example, they tell you that black Americans have no ties to Egypt. Like, this is impossible. When a black American man found out he had ties to the Pharaoh Ramses, these things are absolutely possible. Like, comment, repost, share, follow for more Black history.